Welcome, everyone, to the Heaven and Earth podcast. We are your hosts, Crystal Woodling
and Matthew Merlin. The astrology today, the moon is in the sign of Libra, currently waxing, which is a great placement for conversation, communication, dialogue in a way that is very, very tactful and agreeable, and also good for the communal pursuit of truth and justice. And she's also forming sextiles to her ruler, the moon, or her ruler Venus in the sign of Leo, as well as Mercury, which are both very, very good for communication and tact and kindness.
Right. And we feel like this is a really beautiful and wonderful celestial portal to bring in our dear friend, dear mentor, Margi Flint, who's one of the most profound, beautiful, kind, and wise teachers and authors that I've had the honor of studying with. And Margi has recommended today that as we share time and space here, that we bring in this beautiful plant ally, Monarda fistulosa. So Margi, thank you so much for joining us. It's so wonderful to be able to not only share some conversation with you, but also be able to share that conversation with our audience, who I know is going to have their minds blown as they hear some of your wisdom. Would you tell us a little bit about Monarda and why you chose Monarda for our plant today?
Okay, well, first, thank you for bringing me on. And as you know, before y'all came on, I was saying, to be an herbalist, you have to be attuned to the stars in the heavens, to stand on earth. I mean, this is what makes us complete. So there's the beginning.
Mhm.
And Monarda, I don't want to make the other herbs feel bad, but I do have favorites. And Monarda is so fabulous. Monarda fistulosa. And I have a little sample here that I picked from the garden this morning.
Beautiful.
See there. And you can see how it has a crown around the sepals. And then these beautiful flowers come out like fireworks. And the crown is a symbol for your crown, that it will make you feel calm and relaxed. And some of the local First Nation people information is that if you put a little Monarda with some other nervine herbs in a little satchel by the baby's bed, that the baby will fall off to sleep and rest. And you could do that with big babies too. So, and we can tell that it is Monarda fistulosa because the leaf, when you feel the leaf, it's very buttery. And all the other Monardas feel dusty. They're more like velvet. And this one is really oily. And it's that oil that we think of for, oil is very calming, especially for Vata people. William Lasassier used to say, oh, if they're Vata, just oil them and send them home. They'll get better. Because the Vata people are losing their essence through their dryness. And if you oil them, they can contain themselves.
Mm-hmm.
William was brilliant. So we have our beautiful Monarda, and Monarda is for all burning sensations and all issues of water.
All burning sensations and all issues of water.
What does that cover? That covers a lot of land there. And the fistulosa is such an amazing prairie plant. If you go, it's more popular out in the Midwestern states. You'll look out and there'll be fields of Monarda, and the side of the road in the ditches, you'll see Monarda growing. I mean, to me, that's heaven. I don't see that here in New England, but it's such a gorgeous plant, and I use it all the time. I don't like to say the word use. I call on Monarda all the time because I'm always burning myself.
Hmm.
So I have a little story. Um, uh, I am actually, I have gathered a number of years in my life. And like many elder people, I'm getting these dark spots that people get, and then they get kind of crusty. And they're, herbalists are pickers. All herbalists are pickers, right? So if I have a little crusty spot, I'm going to pick it. It's not good. So I had to see my dermatologist because I'm also a rough gardener and I've hurt myself. So anyway, uh, she said, "Well, is there anything else I can do for you while you're here?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've got these ugly, dry things. Can you blast those off?" So they use liquid nitrogen. Is that right? Uh,
Sounds good.
Yeah, freeze it off.
freeze it off.
Yeah, yeah.
And it burns. So it's a burn. And I thought, well, I'll go out and do what Matt Wood said I should do because all the information I learned about Monarda is from Matthew Wood. And so I just chewed up some leaves. And so it's important to have saliva. It's very non-COVID thought. So chew it up and I put it on the little burned off bits. I have not even noticed them since then.
Mhm.
No burn. And the Monarda, if you continuously put it onto your skin where you've had a burn, it can transform that scar tissue. And one, you won't have a dark, ugly scar. Two, you won't potentially have a scar. It will just look like beautiful skin with maybe a little light coloring. But I have seen miracles with this plant.
Wow.
And the thing about fire and water, what does that make? Steam, right? So steam burns, fire pit burns. I had a friend call me, late one night, well, dinner time. It's like, and she had that voice, and that's extreme pain. And she said, I pulled the pan out of the oven and I didn't have mitts on
Hmm.
with metal handles. And she had literally the rivets of the pan were on both of her hands. So I grabbed my Monarda and a bottle of lavender essential oil and told her, put your hands in cool water. I'll be right over. Came over and just dumped the tincture of Monarda and the um, lavender essential oil into the water and had her dip and pull. And she has no scars. There's no
Hmm.
evidence whatsoever.
It's
I
beautiful.
mean, it's like, I love you.
Hmm.
That's incredible. Would
Yeah.
would you
So,
say those that she works for like old burns if you already have
yeah.
scars?
And old scars as well.
Oh, wow.
So
Awesome.
it can be Monarda and Gotu Kola are two herbs that you can use to get rid of scar tissue. So that can be surgical scar tissue or endometrial scar tissue or, any scar tissue that builds in the body. And as we were talking about, if you're missing intrinsic factor, that glycoprotein in your gut, if you're missing that, you tend to keloid when you make scars. And so people who keloid definitely would benefit by having a little bit of tea.
Well, I'm super grateful because that is definitely something that I have. And actually, I saw you. I was a client of yours when I was, first reading your work on intrinsic factor and realizing that, I definitely saw myself in that category, and that wasn't intrinsic factor. I think you're one of the first slash only herbalists to be or healer.
Well, yeah, it used to be people would say, "No, I don't want you to talk about that because I don't understand it." It's like, what? I mean, the reason I studied intrinsic factor was genetically, I had such, I mean, I love my parents. They're wonderful. They're both gone now, but genetically, bad genes. It's like, oh my God. And on both sides, I couldn't understand why we had all these bizarre conditions. Oh, we are going off on a tangent. I hope you don't mind.
No,
Well,
this is what we
Okay.
want to talk about.
Uh,
for
so
people who aren't familiar with intrinsic factor, can we talk a little bit about what that is for people?
Yeah.
So,
Thank you
yeah.
so
So intrinsic factor is a glycoprotein that you're born with. It's in your gut. And if you're missing intrinsic factor, for instance, the toe next to your big toe will be longer, and under your tongue, you're going to have stalactites coming down. When you curl your tongue like that, there'll be little stalactites. And if you don't have intrinsic factor, you don't assimilate B12.
Okay.
And B12 is essential for human life, reproduction, nervous system, everything. If you suffer from any mood disorder, look to intrinsic factor. If you have a history of cancer, if you have a history of all the neural tube defects, spina bifida, clubfoot, scoliosis, et cetera, et cetera. There are 749 conditions directly related to a lack of intrinsic factor, and no one ever talked about it. So I began reading biochemistry books, not my field, but I just was like, why is this going on? And how can I change it? And how can I change it for my children and for their children? Because it's genetic. And then you add to it the environment, and we could go on forever about that, and food. But there are foods you can increase eating and foods you should avoid. So it's all in the book. And so anyway, I researched and began teaching. And the truth is, in this time of astrologically creating the world we want in this new age, the Aquarian age, I want this world to be healthier. And I want children to be born without this potential mutation that is not going in a good direction. So, food allergies, all of that. So, where is the power? It's in teaching and spreading the word. Let the ripple go out. If I teach you and then you have a podcast and then it goes out into the world, that's a good ripple. And then our children and our grandchildren can enjoy this incredibly beautiful planet. So as I'm twirling this, I'm noting it's a mint family. It has a square stem.
which is an astrological sign of Jupiter. Jupiter
Jupiter rules a lot of mints. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What are attributes of Jupiter?
I think from the medical angle that we're discussing here, Jupiter is said to be sanguine, so it's associated with air, and it's warming and moistening. So we see the fire and the water, the heat and the moistening qualities showing up. This is something that's true for, I think, the vast majority of mint family plants.
Mints are usually warming and then cooling.
So that
interesting. It's that amphoteric aspect it brings to balance.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, and especially for a plant like this one where you can start to treat congenital issues, these genetic factors, which many people just think is something that they're born with and something that they can't do anything about, but are realizing, and what most traditional societies have known all along, is that these can be treated, these can be healed if you know which plants to properly work with. These are things that can be addressed for anybody. All 797 conditions, or however many it was.
It's good. Add more in.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to quote one of my teachers, Jeffrey Bland, who is a nutrigenomics guy. Brilliant. If you can ever study with him, do take a lot of ginseng, sit in the front row. He says the only way to change your DNA is with good nutrition.
Mhm.
And in that, we include herbs. If you start, if you make yourself, I make these little pestos you could put a little bit of sweet leaf, just use the leaves fresh, a little bit of sweet leaf and some dandelion greens and some olive oil, garlic, pumpkin. I love the sprouted pumpkin seeds. So you're getting zinc. So these are all, we're talking about skin issues, right? Keloiding. So with the zinc and the dandelion leaf and the sweet leaf, you have a great pesto. And I just put it in one of those blenders, the little quick blenders, put the cap on, keep it in the fridge, or you can freeze small amounts in a jar. And then you can add garlic or whatever you want for the meal you're having. But you have access to healing yourself with food. Yeah,
And
fun.
so when we are talking about the skin conditions and healing old wounds, right? And that's another thing that I got from your teaching that I hadn't heard many other people talk about before, was the importance of, if you were injured somewhere, right? And your hand keeps going there,
Yeah.
right? Like even if you had an old bruise, like maybe like,
Mhm.
bad bruises when you were a child, or, an old scar or an old place that, got hurt. And it's like it's still important to
Yes.
treat those old wounds, and that you can treat
Yes.
those old wounds. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's cellular memory. What our bodies are so full of magic, first of all. Everything is connected. We don't have herbal cardiologists and herbal pulmonologists. We know this body is a dancing unit within all that skin and the auric field. So if you have, um, for instance, I have a bunch of birth defects, but one of them is that I have a kidney in the wrong place. It's in my abdomen instead of hidden safely underneath my rib cage toward the rear. And the but if when I have Kirlian photography done, my kidney is where it's supposed to be, not where it is, because the body remembers the perfection of creation. And if you have an injury, for instance, the people that have fought in wars and lose a limb, they still feel their limb. How is that possible? It's because it's cellular memory. And working with that cellular memory, plants are very good at doing this because they're our ancestors, they're our teachers, they're the ones that we look to for wisdom and for healing and to, be respectful of our elders and, um, honor what they offer us. So plants, every plant really has these abilities to work with your cells and that memory of cells. So if you've had some past trauma and it's affecting your nervous system, this is a fabulous nervine that you could use to help not only remove the physical scar, but the emotional scar. And then once that's removed, as Karen Sanders says, another fabulous herbalist everyone should try and study with, although she's pretty retired now, is that once you free the trauma, the pain, the hurt, the scar, then you want to focus on bringing what you want to be now in. And that's the age we're in now. We're in the age of creation. We need to focus on what is positive and make positive change and have that be our ripple. And starting with our own being, with this body that you have right now.
That's like, somatic therapy is becoming so much more mainstream and so much more popular now with like Dr. Bergamont, the spread of Philip Levine's work. And this is feeling like a really beautiful plant that you could bring into your your somatic experiencing session,
Yeah.
or any somatic work.
Well, it's used in sweat lodge.
Mhm.
You can place the leaves or flowers on the sweat lodge stones. And, burning plants is a way of clearing, you know, I mean, I go back to the basic teachings of Rosemary Gladstar, my very first teacher. It's like first you sit with the herb, then you listen to the herb, then you write down what you hear, see, feel. Then you research the herb in books written by practicing herbalists. Then you taste it. No, it's a long journey. And then when you taste and begin to feel the vibration of the plant, that's when the knowing comes. And I think the uh, the great teachers now that are working with people on the multidimensional levels are helping to share this respect for the path of transformation.
And so
Yeah, he's a great teacher.
who was that?
You were his name jumped out of my head now. Uh Massey.
Oh,
Gabermonte.
Gabrielle Massey, yeah.
Yeah.
Gabor Massey. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
He is a great teacher. He's doing some really beautiful work getting people into their bodies and healing trauma. And when I listen to his work, I think, he sounds so much like so many of the herbalists that I've worked with, because this is something that, people who work deeply with plant spirits, and I believe he studied with a lot of indigenous people, and that a lot of indigenous societies, understand that so much of our trauma, so much of our struggle, right, is never just physical or never just mental, never just spiritual. It's all happening on these.
Yeah, it's David Winston. When I was studying with him, that was 50 years ago, probably. He always said there's no comma in body, mind, spirit. It's a circle. You can't have one without the other. I do like that. No commas.
No commas.
For people who want to work with the spirit of Monarda, and really get like the deep transformational healing, I was very drawn when earlier you brought up the First Nations practice of putting the plant in a satchel and having it by you as you're sleeping. Is that act of putting plant matter in some kind of medicine bag, pouch, charm bag, mojo, that's a very universal practice that shows up in a lot of
Everywhere.
African, everywhere. It's everywhere. It
Yeah.
shows up in like the Picatrix and ancient Western magical grimoires. They use it in the East in Taoism too. Is that something that people who aren't just, babies, but who want to work really, really closely with the spirit of the plant now and try and get the
Oh,
cellular
absolutely.
healing? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in calling on all the gifts we have. So you can have the plant in a little cloth bag or a leather satchel. You can put it in a little tiny pouch and put it near your pillow. You don't want to put your head on it, but have it near you so that it's entering into your spirit in your dream time. You can have pictures like I have here. Can you see this? Yeah. So that's actually a plant pressing. I'll pull it out.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is an herbarium specimen of Monarda,
Beautiful.
and it's a very you have to do all the things I said about honoring the plant and then pick it with the root and then make it all fit on one piece of paper, which is a challenge. Therefore, the zigzags. And these are wonderful meditations. If you want to get to know a plant, because you first have to dry it and press it, which takes weeks. And then you have to glue it to a piece of archival paper. And it takes about 2 hours to do one of these. I mean, I spent winters in the evenings just listening to music and making herbarium specimens. So
Wow.
I highly recommend students of herbs to have herbarium specimens. And that way, when you teach, you always have your plants,
Mhm.
even if it's not summertime, you know?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's it's also it's a teaching tool, a way to become close to the herb, you know,
Exactly.
spiritually and physically, right? As it's like life is being released as it's drying, and then it becomes something of like a sacred talisman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a talismanic
It,
piece of art.
it reminds me of like an herbal version of ancient small statues and effigies to specific deities. Where
Yeah.
here it's like a
Nice.
statue, an image of the plant god, the god, the deity that is Monarda.
Yeah.
You always have like enshrined to her in your home somewhere, and you can bring that with you as you're teaching.
Yes, they are precious though, and they need to be kept in a light-free box.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do a whole class on that. But
Wow.
you know, they're only temporarily out in a frame in light, and the rest of the time they're tucked away in a thick cloth bag for carrying off to a class somewhere or in my herbarium box. You know, it because color fades, you
Right.
know,
Right.
we all fade away at some point.
Mhm.
That's like with a lot of sacred tools,
You keep them.
you keep them
Yeah,
covered so you don't.
Yeah.
exactly.
There's even some protocols around talismans, not having them touch the sunlight and that kind
Yeah,
of, yeah.
that's why my herbs, so you can see the herb closet, but that door is usually shut. I only have it open to make it look pretty for you.
Thank you. We're honored.
But the rest of the time, that door is shut, the light is off, and I even had like when the door shuts, it automatically shuts the light off because when I had apprentices, inevitably somebody would leave the light on, and then you're cooking your herbs.
Mhm.
But you walk in that room, it's much cooler than the rest of the house because herbs have their own energy and they want to be protected and they want to be in glass jars
Mhm.
and they want to be airtight and they, you know, it's like you've said your prayers and gathered your herbs or gone to trusted sources for herbs and then you put them in a glass jar and set them aside so that they're and you know my essential oils, oh you can't even see them. Well, I have lots of I have these little train kits. I'll show you. See
Oh,
that
nice.
adorable
Very adorable.
commercials? And you just, you know, all my essential oils.
Oh, lovely.
I know I
Oh,
have 3 of these. Do you believe it? You want to see more? There's a little more peek. That's all you get.
gorgeous. That's all you get.
And the essential oils have to be separate, you know, and you know, Monarda essential oil would be incredible because Monarda is so rich in essential oils. The volatile oils are just so potent, and that herb lasts and lasts and lasts because of the essential oils. But essential oils need to be separate from flower essences. They will like wipe them out. So, you know, so my flower essences are in a different room,
Mm.
you know, because there's energy in everything. You know, our plants have energy, and when we capture the essence of the plant, whether it's a flower essence or an essential oil or a hydrosol or a tincture or a vinegar or a glycerin, all of that needs to be protected in the proper way. Does it need to be in the refrigerator? You know, so that's where education is so important and sharing good practices. And I'm really um, trying to stress the importance of really having a clean area to do your herbal work. You know, I I'm not OCD, but I could be on the edge. But I do believe in having a really clean lab and having your jars sterile. And, there are simple ways to do things that you know you're not passing on something that could be contaminated. Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right. So what are
I always feel like such a mother.
do you have any simple tips or tricks for people to ensure that they have a clean, sterile environment? Do you have any like top rules that you pass on to your students?
Use a dishwasher. If you wash 6 dishes, you use the same amount of water that's used in a dishwasher if you
Really?
wash them by hand. And a dishwasher, you can set it to sterile and sanitize.
Hmm.
So then your products, and then you need to air dry them, hopefully in the sun, so that no water remains in those funny shaped jars. And you never put anything away when it's wet. It has to be fully dry first. And I do have some tricks. You can use your oven at 220 and have a rack that's clean to put jars on to finish that drying process. I mean, I have bees, so I have to sterilize stuff all the time for the honey.
Mhm.
And so you can use your oven. And my latest quick toy, I do like the fast lane sometimes. Um, it's called CWC, Cook with Color. And it's an air fryer, which sounds disgusting, but it doesn't fry anything. And it's a glass container with a stainless steel rack, and I can put my little pipettes and little
Right.
small glass things in there and turn it right up to like 300 and leave it in there for a period of time. And then I know everything is washed and clean and dry
Hmm.
before I put it away.
And so
I love that you keep doing this. It's like that's what they do at concerts.
That's what poets do when something profound has been
Oh,
said. They snap.
oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I
Okay. Oh, you're
Yeah.
blushing.
I came up
So
a
cute.
poet.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was
I know
doing
whenever
it
she
so
get,
much.
I think that she's back in like a French cafe somewhere in the
I know, I
19th,
like it.
snapping
I
at like
I think it's
surrealist
excellent. Don't ever
profundity.
stop.
Yeah.
I was a this surrealist poetry was my forte before entering into this realm. So
Oh,
it
lovely.
still brings
Well,
me.
one day I'll share a bit of my memoirs with you.
Oh, I love that.
And my daughter said, "Oh my God, Mom, that book will burst into flame."
Hmm.
And I said, "What a great back cover."
Hmm.
Excellent. But so the sterilizing or treating your jars well or your implements well, that's part of respecting the plants, right?
And
Like you say,
respecting your field. You
respecting.
know, we're we are dealing with people's health. This is life and death for a lot of people. When I was still seeing clients, it was heavily cancer patients. And you're dealing with a person's life. You need to have sterile products, and you need to have the life force, not products, but the sterility of the containers for the products. And you need to maintain the life force of the plant in whatever form you've made it into, and you teach the client that, yes, please put this in a dark glass jar in storage. Don't put it near your stove. So education, people don't know. You know how many people put their herbs up above their refrigerator? That's hot up there. It's a bad idea. Or next to the stove on those little racks. It's like the
Yeah.
heat rises. Don't do that.
Yeah,
Get
that's why
something beautiful and keep it far away.
so many of our mothers put the spices right above
Right on the,
right
Exactly.
above the
yeah, on the
stove,
stove.
right?
And kitchen designers, they still do that. The cupboard next to the stove, you open it up and there's mine is like that.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's all
It's
it.
just unlearning
Yeah.
these bad habits and then figuring
Just
out.
creating new, better ones.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Oh, thank you so much for that. I really, yeah,
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
So in sum, then, for best preservation for herbs is cool and dry, basically. Less
Yep.
water,
Dark.
dark.
Dark is important. So either behind a door or in dark glass, and less air. So you don't want to have a great big jar. Like I have my Monarda
Mhm.
in a glass jar, and the colors, oh, you can't really see it, but there are purple flowers still in there.
Let's see.
And so I know if the herb is still good by looking at it.
Mhm.
And
That's
then
cool.
the Monarda oil is in a dark jar because these I have in my office on a shelf. It's not in sunlight, but it's the lights are on in here. So all those oils, I like to have them in dark glass.
Mhm.
So a little more protected. So less air, no heat, glass. Tins are okay if it's a really tight tin, but even in a tin, I tend to wrap in um, wax paper so that it doesn't touch the metal because metal has its own energy.
Mhm.
I mean, everything has energy. As David Winston says, everything is alive.
Mhm.
Is it true? If you bring up the metal thing and you keep bees, I've
Yeah.
heard you shouldn't put metal in honey.
Yeah, you should use a wooden spoon.
You should use one spoon.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's true.
I mean, wood is actually fabulous. I went head to head with a friend of mine who is chef of a four-star restaurant. I have lots of chefs in my life, and including my son. And but this was a different chef. And he's like, no, you should use those plastic cutting boards, not wood. And I said, wood is better.
Mhm.
And then there was a wonderful article on a nun who made a product. I can't remember what it was, but she used wooden containers to make her products. And the government said, no, you have to use stainless steel. She said, it won't work. They won't preserve. And she was right. And she did a whole research thing through Harvard
Mhm.
and proved that wood was better.
Yeah.
So I believe in wood. And there are a lot of plants that don't like metal too, like digging Solomon seal. You should use your fingers or a deer antler or something. Don't use metal to dig Solomon seal.
Oh,
You can cut once it's cut and once it's out of the land, then you can use a knife if you want to, but for digging, it doesn't like metal.
Mhm.
wow. Are there other plants that don't like metal?
I don't know of another one, but I think of it as the ones that um, have rhizomes that travel across the land because they're more finger-like, and you need to I love deer antler
Mhm.
for digging roots. I mean, that's like digging bag
Yeah.
tool.
Nice. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other one I love is a screwdriver.
Nice. Well, that's beautiful. So we're coming our
Time.
up on our time, but we would love to know, first of all, would love to have you back because we didn't even get to talk about one of the things I'm most excited about in your work. So this will have to be part two if you're open to it, which is the reading the body,
Yeah,
right? In the ways that your face, the way that you even
yeah,
you even go into, particular behaviors. So this is teaser for next time. Pick particular behaviors, like dropping things, right, can
Yeah,
indicate, particular, what is it, pituitary disruption, right? Or, the lumps in your
hypothalamus. Yep.
throat, right? Yeah. So that's something that
Close though, that was good.
um, but so if people, would you like to tell us a little bit about, if people want to work with you, how they can find you?
Okay. Well, I teach. I've retired from most everything except having fun. And you can hire me to come and teach, and I charge a lot of money because I'm old and I need to support myself. So you can also buy this weight-bearing exercise of a book, 600 pages. So this is the fourth edition, The Practicing Herbalist, and you talked about it already, so that's good. And it is a textbook for herbalists, and you can figure out how to set up your practice, and it's really practical. It's everything I wanted to know when I started out that I had to learn myself.
I still have to get the fourth edition, but the third edition I have spent many hours of my life with and absolutely love it. It's a treasure trove of so much wisdom that is literally mind blowing. I remember having like reading the intrinsic factor section and like feeling like I was having a spiritual experience. Like there's so much I understand now.
Yay. Well,
Like,
that's wonderful. Thank you. That
yes.
makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? That was very satisfying. Thank you. Yeah, so the book is great, and then I teach all over the country and Europe. I just got back from a month teaching in Europe, so I was in England, Portugal, and Italy. And next year, I think I'm going to do Corfu in Greece,
Oh.
and maybe Ireland and London. You have to kind of fly in and out of, so we'll do that again. But I might teach out in the Cotswolds on my friend's farm, Leslie Astor's farm. And, y'all can come out, travel, come and have fun with me. I guarantee you'll have fun.
Well, that sounds very exciting. And so you'll see that we have links in the podcast description for getting to Margi's website, for purchasing her book, and for hopefully seeing some of these amazing retreats that she's going to be teaching all around the world. I'm definitely going to be looking out for those and trying to make it. And yeah, call her in, bring her in. We need to honor our elders while they're still walking here and while they have the energy to come and pour from the font of wisdom for us. So thank you for letting us drink from your font today, Margi, and we look forward to having you back
Thank you.
again soon.
Thank you, Margie.
Yeah.
Thank you.